So, Facebook under fire from the right again tonight after temporarily banning a pro-Trump super PAC from advertising on the site for repeatedly sharing content that they deemed false. Sanction coming less than 24 hours after Facebook and Twitter removed and flagged posts of the president or his campaign making comments about COVID-19 and kids. So let's discuss with FCC Commissioner Brendan Carr and the author of the MAGA Doctrine, Charlie Kirk. Good to have you both with us tonight.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
Okay, so to read a little bit more from Andy Stone from Facebook talking about this pro-Trump super PAC, he said they repeatedly shared content determined by third-party fact checkers to be false, so they won't be permitted to advertise there. I mean, Charlie, they said this is part of their protocol.
Look, I've dealt with this process personally, and it's first important to recognize that not all these tech companies are the same. I mean, Twitter has decided to basically become a left-wing activist portal and not even show up to testify in front of Congress. I completely disagree with Facebook's approach to this, and I think that when they say it's third-party checkers, I think there's a lot of questions behind that, and they typically just delegate that authority to very left-wing journalists and individuals. However, I will say, as someone who does a lot on social media and has amassed millions of followers, Facebook, out of all the tech companies, at least has had dialogue with conservatives when there's disagreement. I think they're totally wrong here. However, Twitter and even Google, they have decided not even to engage at all. And I think, look, the social media space is where a lot of these conversations are happening. And I think right now we need to have a very serious, let's say, like, rules of engagement from these tech companies of, if you're going to apply a rule to a conservative, it better apply to a liberal, especially when you see that impartiality is not something Silicon Valley can always embody.
Yeah, and Cheryl Atkinson, investigative journalist, had written a piece before these things happened this week. A couple days ago, it came out talking about fact checkers. She says fact checkers are like-minded journalists or often liberal Silicon Valley gatekeepers who frequently rely on partisan news sources and political activists to control narratives on a wide variety of issues and controversies. This small group of players exerts an oversized influence using fact checkers to shape and censor information. But, Commissioner, they are private entities.
You're right. Look, when it comes to free speech, Facebook's relationship status it's complicated. And when you compare Mark Zuckerberg to some of his counterparts in Silicon Valley, he actually does a far better job when it comes to standing up for free speech. He said that he doesn't want Facebook to be the arbiter of truth, and there's others in Silicon Valley who are more than happy to seize that mantle. Nonetheless, Facebook continues to stumble along the way, as we see right here. And I think that's because this fact-checking approach, this content moderation, as you pointed out, is just fraught. So often fact-checking is just opinion journalism, and it really just invites people to try to work the refs at Facebook. We saw just this week 20 state AGs, all Democrats, sent a letter to Facebook saying they needed to start taking down more speech. I think that's the opposite direction. We need more speech, more ideas, a diversity of opinion. That's why I said we should just turn off these bias filters and let the American people make their own decisions about what they want to believe when it comes to these opinions.
Okay, there was this headline we saw from The Hill today and some others reporting it as well, that Facebook takes down troll farm posing as black support for Trump. It says the company took down 35 accounts, 3 pages, and 88 Instagram accounts that were part of the operation. So, Charlie, do you agree that sometimes they're getting this right?
Well, look, I deal with these platforms probably 200 times a day. I mean, I'm posting and tweeting all the time. And I could tell you, at least I do believe that more so than Google and Twitter, Facebook has at least resisted some of this left-wing pressure to remove posts. I could tell you personally from posts that would not be able to at least have a fair hearing on some of these other platforms. Facebook, at least, I think, has had some commission of free expression. And Mark Zuckerberg was the only person who testified last week who actually thinks China is a threat to our country. However, I think that this fact-checking process, as Brendan said, needs to be completely eliminated. I've had posts of my own that said they're fact-checking it. This is a Washington Post. I mean, these are activist organizations that are getting grants from Facebook. So I think it is fraught, and it's very, as Brendan says, aptly complicated. Last point I'll say is this, Shannon. This is not a minor issue. Speech that used to be in the public, maybe outside of a state legislature, is now all happening online. I think it's a civil right to have your voice heard on a social platform, and we must demand that out of all of these tech companies.
Well, and Commissioner, have they been transformed into public forums that would have more legal protections for free speech?
Well, this is a question that's really being raised at the FCC where I work just right now. The Trump administration filed a petition with us last week asking for us to adopt rules clarifying Section 230, which a lot of people now know is a law passed in the 1990s that gives special protections to websites as opposed to other political actors. We've now put that petition out for comment, and we welcome the public feedback on whether we should take action there. I think, look, when it comes to these big tech platforms, we need more accountability, more transparency, more user empowerment. And really, this is a microcosm for, I think, a broader debate in the conservative movement. What do we do in the face of massive accumulation of power? I think we need to do more than just sit on our hands. That's why I've called for some accountability here, because I don't think the status quo is acceptable.
Well, and as Charlie said, a lot of conservatives have been able to build massive followings on these platforms, so we'll continue to watch. Commissioner, Charlie, good to have you both.
Thanks.
Thank you.